What if the greatest love story in the Bible didn't begin with a wedding, but with 3 funerals? What if a poor, widowed foreigner became the great-grandmother of a king? This is the story of Ruth, a journey from loss to hope, from emptiness to an overflowing blessing. A long, long time ago, a terrible problem swept through a place called Bethlehem, which means house of bread. The land was so dry and dusty that nothing would grow. The fields were empty, and the tables were bare. A kind man named Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, had to leave their home to find food. They packed up everything and walked a long way to a country called Moab, hoping to find a better life. For a little while, things were good. The family found food, and the 2 sons grew up and married 2 kind Moabite women named Orpah and Ruth. For a time, it seemed like their new life was full of hope. But sorrow and tragedy have a way of finding us. The first blow came when Elimelech passed away. Naomi was left all alone, a widow in a foreign land. And then, a few years later, a second, even more terrible heartbreak struck. Both of her sons died. Now, there were 3 women, Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth, all alone and heartbroken. They were tied together by their grief, with a future that felt completely blank. Naomi's heart was filled with a deep, aching sadness. She missed her home, her people, and the land where she belonged. When she heard that the famine in Bethlehem was finally over, she made a difficult choice. She had to go home. She turned to her daughters-in-law, her eyes filled with tears. Her voice was full of both love and pain. "My daughters," she said, "you must go back. Go back to your own families, to your mother's houses. May God bless you and be as kind to you as you have been to me. I pray that you find a new home and a new life." Orpah cried and hugged Naomi tightly, a long, sad goodbye. She knew it was the right thing to do. So, with a final kiss, she turned and walked away. But Ruth, whose heart was so full of love, simply could not leave her. Naomi looked at Ruth, her face a mix of pain and surprise. "Look," she said gently, "your sister-in-law has gone back to her own people. You should go back with her." But Ruth did not move. She looked at Naomi with a strong, steady gaze, her eyes shining with loyalty. She was about to speak words that would be remembered forever, words that would become the most important promise she ever made. "Do not ask me to leave you or to turn back from following you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will become my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Nothing but death will separate you and me." It was a shocking promise. Ruth was giving up everything, her home, her family, her culture, and the God she had been taught to believe in. She was choosing a difficult life with a heartbroken old woman, all because of love. Naomi, seeing the unbreakable strength of her heart, stopped arguing. She knew that God was at work in this young woman. And so, they walked together, a young woman and a grieving mother-in-law, on a long, long journey back to Bethlehem. When they finally arrived, the whole town was filled with wonder. "Is this Naomi?" the townspeople whispered, surprised to see her so changed by grief. But Naomi, whose name meant pleasant, felt anything but pleasant. "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I left with a full family, but God has brought me back empty." It was the beginning of the barley harvest in Bethlehem. The fields, once dry and empty, were now golden with grain. Naomi saw only the past in them, but for Ruth, they were a chance. By an old rule, the poor were allowed to follow the harvesters and pick up the leftover grain that fell to the ground. It was hard, humbling work, but it was a way for them to survive. Ruth turned to Naomi. "Please let me go to the fields," she said. "Maybe I can find favor with someone and be allowed to glean." Naomi agreed. Ruth went out and, by a stroke of luck that was really God's divine plan, she ended up in a field that belonged to a very kind and wealthy man named Boaz. a relative of Naomi's deceased husband. All day, Ruth worked tirelessly under the hot sun day. Her back ached, her hands were sore, but she kept going, gathering every single stalk of barley she could find. She noticed the other gleaners, mostly poor, older women, and she kept to herself, a quiet stranger in a strange land. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Boaz came out to check on his workers. He saw Ruth and noticed how hard she was working. He asked his foreman, "Whose young woman is this?" "She's the young woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She asked if she could glean behind the workers, and she has been working hard since this morning." Boaz felt a deep respect for her loyalty. He walked over to Ruth, his voice warm and gentle. "Listen, my daughter, don't go to another field. Stay right here with my young women. I've told my men to be kind to you. And whenever you are thirsty, you can drink from their water jars." Ruth was so surprised by his kindness. A stranger, a foreigner. She felt she had no right to such generosity. She bowed low to him, her heart full of gratitude. "Why have I found such favor in your eyes, since I am a foreigner?" Boaz's reply was filled with admiration. He had already heard her story, her incredible vow. "Everything you have done for your mother-in-law has been fully told to me. You left your own people and came to a people you did not know. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully." At lunchtime, Boaz invited her to eat with him and his workers. He even gave her a handful of roasted grain, a special treat. And when she went back to work, Boaz secretly instructed his young men to make her work easier. "Leave some extra grain for her," he told them. "Don't make it obvious, but let her glean a lot." That evening, Ruth returned to Naomi with an incredible amount of barley, about 25 pounds. Naomi's eyes widened in disbelief. "Where did you glean today?" "The man who was kind to you, may he be blessed. The man's name is Boaz. May the Lord bless him. The man is a close relative of ours. He is one of our kinsman redeemers." A kinsman redeemer was a special kind of relative who had a sacred duty. They were responsible for helping family members who were in trouble. They could buy back land that had been sold, and if a woman became a widow with no children to carry on her husband's name, the redeemer could marry her to keep the family line alive. This was a secret door of hope Naomi had forgotten existed. Naomi, whose spirit was now filled with a new kind of hope, saw a way to give Ruth a safe and happy future. She told Ruth about a daring plan. She explained that Boaz was going to be at the threshing floor tonight, a quiet, private place where he would be alone after work. "Go down to the threshing floor, wash yourself, put on perfume, wear your best clothes, and wait for Boaz to finish eating and drinking. When he lies down to sleep, go and lie down quietly at his feet. He will tell you what to do." Ruth knew this was a huge risk. A young woman going alone to a man at night was highly unusual, but she trusted Naomi completely, just as she was learning to trust the God of Israel. "All that you say, I will do." She changed into her best clothes, and under the cover of the night, she went down to the threshing floor. She waited until Boaz had eaten and fallen asleep beside his pile of grain. With a pounding heart, she crept forward, uncovered his feet, and lay down there, a silent plea for his protection and provision. In the middle of the night, Boaz was startled awake. He felt a presence at his feet. "Who are you?" "I am Ruth, your servant. Please spread your cloak over me, for you are a close relative who can marry me." Spreading a cloak over someone was a symbol of protection, a promise of marriage. Boaz understood immediately, and in that moment, he knew he was facing a choice that would not only change their lives, but set in motion a much bigger plan. Boaz was so moved by her faith and loyalty. He told her, "May the Lord bless you, my daughter. You have not looked for a young man, but you have chosen to honor my family. And now, do not be afraid. I will do for you everything you ask, because everyone in town knows you are a truly good woman." But there was a small problem. There was a relative who was even closer than Boaz and had the first right to redeem Naomi's land and marry Ruth. Go home now, for there is a redeemer closer than I. If he is willing, good. But if not, as surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. The very next day, Boaz went to the city gate, the place where all business and legal matters were settled in front of the whole town. He sat down and waited for the other relative to pass by. He called him over and explained the situation. He told him that Naomi was selling a piece of land and that he had the first right to buy it and redeem it. The other relative, with a greedy look in his eye, said, I will redeem it. Then Boaz revealed the unexpected twist. The day you buy the land from Naomi, you must also marry Ruth, the Moabite widow, to keep her husband's family name alive. The relative quickly said, Then I cannot do it. You take my right. I cannot do it and risk my own family's inheritance. In front of all the elders at the city gate, the deal was sealed. The relative took off his sandal and gave it to Boaz, a public act of giving up his right. And Boaz, in front of the whole town, declared his intentions. Today, you are all my witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all that belonged to her husband and her sons. And I have also taken Ruth the Moabite to be my wife, so that her husband's name will not be forgotten. You are all my witnesses. The people and the elders cheered, and the story of loss was finally undone. Boaz married Ruth, and with the help of God, she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. The women of the town celebrated with Naomi, their hearts overjoyed to see her pain turned into joy. Blessed be God, he has given you a redeemer, and your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Naomi took the child and held him close. Her lap, which had been so empty, was now filled with a new life. They named him Obed. And this child, born to a Moabite woman and an Israelite man, was a pivotal part of a great promise. Obed became the father of Jesse, and Jesse became the father of King David. Yes, from a foreign woman who had nothing came the family line of Israel's greatest king. And far beyond that, her faith and loyalty were so important that her name is mentioned in the family tree of Jesus Christ himself. Ruth's story is more than a love story. It's a story of quiet strength, loyalty, and faith. She lost everything but trusted God. Through her humility and obedience, God turned her trials into blessing, no matter how hard life gets. God writes something eternal when we walk with him faithfully, even in silence. God doesn't always use the powerful and the famous to do his great work. He used the quiet, faithful obedience of a woman named Ruth and the humble kindness of a man named Boaz to create a wonderful plan for his people. He took a journey that began with 3 funerals and turned it into the story of a great king. Remember, kids, no matter how hard life gets, God writes something eternal when we walk with him faithfully, even in silence. God's greatest plans are often hidden in our simple acts of obedience, loyalty, and faith.